So what happens when the length of the recession goes to zero? What's another word for that? Pop quiz. Recession is zero time in length. What do you call that? What is that word? It's called communism, right? Only in communism or state-run countries, they have no recession, but they also have no way for anybody to have a life other than being a slave. So, okay, that's where America's headed.
Certainly, it would seem that it would eventually start to invite a sort of zombie economy, right?
Right, it's a zombie economy. So in other words, volatility is the stuff of life. You need volatility to create life. Because if it's just one, like the EKG machine, you notice if it's going like this, that means you're dead. You know, what fish flow with the current? Dead fish, right? EKG of a healthy person, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. That's volatility. That's the volatility of life. Look at the salmon spawning in the river. You see, it's volatile because it's alive. It's alive. If you're trying to reduce volatility in your economy, you're trying to create either one, a prison, two, a slave ship, or three, America in the 21st century.
Well, it's many of the Western economies, including Europe, Australia, all the English-speaking language sort of economies, and the interventions are greater and greater. In the United Kingdom, it's pretty amazing the amount of debt they've had to accumulate to make sure that the economy stays like constant. There is no recession. The recessions are business cycles, right? They used to be what was called the business cycle, and poorly run companies would go out of business. And unemployment might rise, yes, but that would force people to move to where jobs were, and it would reallocate capital and labor in the economy. We don't have that anymore, and they hope to eradicate recessions for good. And you can see that in this next tweet here from Charlie Bilello. 1, stocks, all-time highs. 2, home prices, all-time highs. 3, incomes, all-time highs. 4, job openings, all-time highs. 5, U.S. core inflation, highest since 1991. 6, Fed, we need 0% rates through at least 2023, and trillions more in bond buying to boost asset prices and increase inflation.
So let's be clear about that. So these markets and asset prices are at all-time highs in fiat money terms. Okay, so whenever you have a dictatorship or an authoritarianism, as you do in the United States now, you've got the top dogs who get free money from the central bank, and they bid up prices on their assets to all-time highs, and then you have now a permanent underclass of wage slaves that are, you know, scrounging for a ham sandwich, who are part of the poor that's growing quite rapidly in a lot of countries, including the U.S. So that has to be taken in context, in fiat money terms. If you look at the Bitcoin world and Bitcoin wealth, it's a completely different picture. But in terms of fiat money, this is what is characteristic of a dictatorship, an autocracy, whether it's Saudi Arabia or the United States.
So the thing is, we've talked about the fourth turning. We talked about this sort of cycles outside of the control of the command and control central bank. So you have generational cycle that can't be stopped, even though their entire wealth has already been spent via debt, right? That's just pulling forward all the consumption for the past 50 years. It's coming due. The generation is arriving. Generation Z is here, and they're here to say, we're not going to stick with this program, right? On the other hand, you have the Thucydides trap. That's also 50 years in the making. I think it was 1972, wasn't it, that Nixon went to China, started to bring them into the global economy. Then, of course, in 2001, they became part of the WTO, unfavored nation status. So these are cycles that are all coming to a head, and you can only control one part of the cycle, perhaps.
Right. The cycle, that is the recession, has been effectively managed or canceled through central bank machinations and manipulation of the money supply and the co-option of the bankers by authoritarians.